Hello, my name is Richard Corbett, and welcome to my third quarter moon lunar cycle report happening on May 1st. And in this session, I'll be covering a daily report from May 1st until the next new moon in Taurus on May 7th. We're in the final week of this lunar cycle, and wow, what a month it has been. In fact, so much so, I'd like to take a quick review from where we've come from since the new moon total solar eclipse on April 8th. Now, if you want to watch these full reports, you have access to them. I do a much further in depth analysis that you can refer to. But I just want to remind us how potent this month has been, and to pull a few highlights forward. So you're actually looking at the new moon that we had on April 8th, and it was a total solar eclipse, got a lot of hype in the media, and for good reason. So some of the most important things to remember about this previous new moon, number one, if you look at the sign of Aries and see how many planets were there, we had Venus, the North Node, Moon, Sun, Chiron, and Mercury in retrograde, all in the sign of Aries, the sign of self expression, ruled by Mars, this sign that is about courage and confidence and moving out into the world as our authentic self. It was a power packed astrological sign, as you can see there. And Chiron was really brought into the headline of this eclipse because it was at 19 degrees and 24 minutes, which made it exact to the minute conjunct the eclipse. Now, all eclipses are fascinating times. So they've had a very interesting history in our collective consciousness over the as we've evolved as human beings. They were often times of a tremendous fear and anxiety. I mean, the two luminaries, either one of them going dark, was quite shocking. Over time, we've developed a new consciousness around eclipses. We're able to calculate them, be aware of them, when they're coming, when they're happening. And we can often see that they bring something to light. Even though it's the luminary going dark, they can offer an illumination into seeing something that we were not aware of previously. So, in that sense, they offer support and rectification. Whatever area they may be stimulating in your life, something may appear that you're now aware of, that we can have a course correction in our self development. So the fact that Chiron was exactly conjunct to the minute really brought Chiron into the headline of this total solar eclipse, the wounded healer. So the theme of this entire cycle was about healing wounds from our past. Wherever we may currently be experiencing any fear, doubt, and insecurity, this cycle gave us the opportunity to trace the roots of those emotions back to the core. When did they start? Where did they start? What were the dynamics under which they happened? And we can view that trauma and how we reframe it now and have the eclipse offer some sense of correction on reframing these past wounds. Actually alchemizing them and turning them into possible gifts and healing that we can have for ourselves and for those around us. So the themes of healing and forgiveness and transcendence were very much a part of the theme of this entire lunar cycle. We also had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction very close at the time of the new moon. It actually was exact on April 20th, but so it was really sort of in the mid-range of the entire lunar cycle. So the background frequency of that conjunction, extremely powerful. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, whatever Jupiter touches, it grows, and it's benevolent and generous, grandiose ways, was lining up with the planet Uranus, which is the planet of shock and suddenness and forward thinking, innovation, often technology related. So these two incredible planets lining up really brings power that we may not even be aware of even now. I mean, this conjunction only happens approximately every 14 years. And if you track back that cycle, back to 2010 or back to 1996, 97, we can look back and see that huge events take place, either in our personal lives or in the world. So just to say that this was a huge astrological event for our entire calendar year, and it really sets the backdrop to this potent lunar cycle we've been in. Also, Mercury was in retrograde. So even though we had all of these planets in the fiery sign of Aries ready to march forward, we had Mercury at the front of that line saying, not so fast. We need to go backwards, right? Mercury in retrograde is an incredibly supportive time to review, reflect, and reanalyze. So, in that sense, very supportive as we were being initiated into a healing process that could bring us to our next level. So, just a week later, after that, we go to the first quarter moon. And in the first quarter moon, it also was incredibly powerful. Well, why do I say that? Because the moon was in her home sign of Cancer. Whenever a planet is in their home sign, they have full access to all of their qualities. And so here, the moon rules Cancer, our inner world, the tranquility, the peace, the nurturing, the love and care that she can offer at its zenith as she's in her home sign of Cancer, and squaring the sun. And the sun in Aries, he's exalted there. He's treated like the royal guest that he is. So, because of the two luminaries lining up in these potent signs in a square, which is the most dynamic, energetic aspect for growth, resolution, and moving forward. Very dynamic first quarter moon that we had. Additionally, while she was traveling through Cancer, she was squaring all of those planets in Aries. So there was just this building, because we're in the first quarter moon, and at this time the moon would have been half illuminated in the night sky, but building an emotional energy, the in-breath of the prana, a lot of dynamic emotional energy. So if anyone was feeling this, if you look back over the course of this month, whether it be in your personal relationships with friends and family, romantic partners, maybe in the workplace, to really review what we noticed. Were there any altercations? If so, what happened? What did it trigger? And I use that word because it may have been very deeply triggering. And if it wasn't for you, then certainly someone you may know could use the support and kindness because they would have been going through it. So again, although these cathartic experiences can be somewhat traumatic and unsettling and cause anxiety, they're there for a reason. Our body is always talking to us and allowing us to listen and find out where this is coming from, so that, again, we can go back and revisit and review and reframe what happened and hopefully alchemize those challenging experiences into something positive that becomes our new strength, a gift for ourselves and others around us. So it was a very potent first quarter moon. We had Mars in gate 22. Anytime the god of war, the planet that rules Aries, and all his strength and vigor in the solar plexus, again, this would have added to the emotional volatility. So, very, very potent first quarter moon. Additionally, I want to add that shortly after this exact first quarter moon, on the 15th, the moon was opposite Pluto. Now, we'll see as we go through the rest of the quarters of this cycle, Pluto very much in the picture. He's there at 2 degrees Aquarius and in gate 41 in the body graph. But the moon, right after this dynamic square with the sun, moved into an opposition with Pluto. Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, and transformation. So the moon being opposite Pluto gave this emotional strength and ability to go within, right? Pluto helps us find the hidden things, what's underneath the surface, where do we have to dig deep? It's very associated with mining gems and minerals. And I really feel like the message here was Pluto offering its support to go deep within, to resolve these issues. Maybe we've visited them in the past, but there still may be some residue that causes these triggering moments. Pluto very much involved in this lunar cycle. This brings us to the full moon in Scorpio, which took place on April 23rd. Well, in this astrological chart, we can see that Pluto, again, being brought into this cycle, formed a T square with the moon and the sun. It was only off by 2 degrees, but that's still very tight. And so, again, bringing this plutonic power to go deep within. Pluto being in gate 41 in the body graph, which is the gate of contraction and decrease, these start codon for a new cycle of experience. And I think that's a lot of what was being triggered in us this cycle, right? That we have these issues somehow from the past, that this was the opportunity to be initiated into our higher self. And in fact, in the body graph, you can see that we have the channel of initiation that was being formed. We had Chiron and the North Node and the eclipse all happened in gate 51, the gate of shock and courage and the channel of initiation. Well, Neptune entered gate 25, bringing that full channel into the body graph. And it really is, if I was to give this entire cycle a one-word title, it would be the cycle of initiation into our highest sense of our authentic self. So Pluto certainly adding its weight in the conversation here. The moon at this time in gate 28 in the it's called the channel of struggle. Gate 28 is called the game player, but really at its essence, it is the instinctual awareness to find and be aware of what has meaning concerning our purpose in life. So it's in the sign of Scorpio, which is also ruled by Pluto. And so this full illumination of the moon, this exaltation of total illumination, this heightened energy. I mean, full moons are, as we know, so potent, right? We oftentimes have hard time sleeping on the night of the full moon. We just have a lot of energy. The ER rooms in hospitals are awfully full because of people overextending. But I often think of it as just sort of the peak summit of the cycle. Right. So we've been inhaling through the waxing phase and this building of energy and the ability to move forward and get things done. But when we reach that full moon, it's that culmination. We're preparing for the exhale for the next 2 weeks of the waning moon as she heads back for another cycle. But it is a peak energetic emotional time, and being in the sign of Scorpio, a fixed water, and the idea of Pluto being its rulership and Pluto being in a T square to the full moon, again, very potent, very powerful, again, possibly very emotional. I can't understate how emotional this month may have been, and if it was, then I hope that you found ways to regulate your nervous system. I do want to mention you all have access to Brandy Jordan's somatic toolbox at our webpage, emergebydesign.net. She's giving daily tips and tools to navigate this very intense astrological weather, and the full moon certainly lived up to that. We still had Jupiter and Uranus. The exact conjunction happened on the 20th, so it is separating, but still very close. So again, as I mentioned, that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction adding to this very dynamic, energetic time in the backdrop. And so that brings us to where our focus begins today for the third quarter moon of this lunar cycle. You know, the moon having passed the full moon a week later on May 1st, she's half illuminated in the sky, but she is in her waning phase, decreasing illumination. Again, thinking of it like an exhale. Having summited the peak of the mountain, we're now on the downhill side. We're returning home in that sense. So this has been a wonderful time, this waning phase of the moon, to review where we were in the first half, what took place, what happened, what changes do we need to make. And so the waning phase is excellent time to tie up loose ends, to release, let go of things that are no longer serving us. Now, with Pluto being such a strong part of the entire lunar cycle, at the first, the full moon, and here even at the third quarter moon. Because at the exact time of the third quarter moon here on May 1st at 5:27 p.m. Mountain Time, the moon had just already had her conjunction with Pluto in gate 41. And so, this idea of Pluto about letting things go that are no longer serving us, whether that is maybe people in our life that have been, maybe it's been an energy drain. There's not been a fair exchange there. Maybe letting that go, maybe something at work or whatever area of life that you may have found to be deeply stimulated this month. The third quarter moon is a wonderful time to take actions to resolve that. It's not such a wonderful time necessarily to begin a brand new project, right? If we're aligning with the cycles of the moon, that would be more oriented towards the new moon, early phases of the waxing moon. But here we can take agency to resolve and review and reformulate what we need to do to gain the most from our experience during the lunar cycle. And as I mentioned, having the moon having just passed her conjunction with Pluto, there may have been hidden gems in here, things that through our diligence and our work, whether it be meditating or yoga or walks in nature, however you've been able to connect with yourself, your deep inner core, this has been a wonderful period this week from now till we close out this cycle on May 7th, a wonderful time to get our inner house in order, right? To really tend the garden, pull the weeds, add some more water and nourishment to the flowers, and protect the boundaries, right? We really, it's a wonderful time to reevaluate healthy boundaries. At the time of the third quarter moon, the sun, the life force energy, was in gate 24, another individual gate. Whenever I say individual, I'm talking about that part of our nature that is the deeper, most recessed area of our personal truth and inspiration. Well, having the sun in gate 24 is called the gate of rationalizing. It's the conceptualizing of our mind that's going over and over and returning and trying to find the kernel of our truth. What is our truth? And I really think, as I mentioned in my previous reports, that is what we've been experiencing from this astrological weather. Who are we? Who am I? Why am I here? What is our purpose? What is my truth? And this has been such fertile period of time to really examine these things. And so I encourage everyone to take advantage of this final week of this lunar cycle to put that type of effort into it. You know, it's very easy in our incredibly busy lives just to take care of things that have to get done, but not create a little space for that inner tranquility, that quiet and solitude. And if you can do that this week and use some of Brandy's tips from her somatic toolbox, absolutely splendid time to really gain the most of this cycle as we move towards the close of it. Also, I want to mention that at the time of the exact third quarter moon, the moon was in gate 13. And, you know, I think because I'm sharing the lunar cycle, when we look at the exact time of each quarter and where the moon is, it really offers a lot of information about what's happening here. And she happens to be in gate 13, the gate of the listener, in the higher self G center. It's actually in line 6, the line of the optimist. Well, gate 13 is our openness and interaction with others. It's about how we can communicate better. How are we listening and hearing with empathy based on experiences of the past? So just a beautiful placement supporting what I was sharing about how are we interrelating? Have we done the healing work? Have we found self-forgiveness and forgiveness for others to live our most authentic self? So just a beautiful placement. Again, she's square to the sun, providing that dynamic energy for growth and resolution as she moves through this third quarter. Mars, also important to note that we can see Mars just entered Aries after leaving Pisces. What a a significant shift this is. Mars is in his home sign now. And again, being in his home sign, he has full access to all of his power. And so I think that's a definite shift. We can also see that Venus at the third quarter moon has moved into her home sign of Taurus. So two personal planets making very significant shifts into their home signs. Additionally, Mercury turned forward on April 25th. So both of these three changes I've just mentioned are all bringing a very different energy to the table right now, right? Just this, even though we're in the waning phases, this next new moon in Taurus, we're going to have a completely different picture than what we've been going through in this cycle. But we may be beginning to feel a shift in energy. Having the Mars and Venus and Mercury forward, these movements, they are giving us energy now with the strength of all the attributes of those archetypal elements of the planet to move forward in our lives, right? But we're still in the waning phase. So we're still collecting the pieces and the dots and so forth, nourishing ourselves. Really, it's giving those shifts, I think, are giving us the energy to really incorporate all that's taken place during this lunar cycle for our health and for forgiveness for ourselves and others, and able to move forward in a more authentic way. Venus also in Taurus there, she moved into gate 27. Now, we had the sun there not too long ago, but gate 27 is called the archetype of caring. And again, very supportive, I think, at the third quarter moon to have her here, bringing her love, harmony, and beauty that Venus does into the gate of caring. And to remember that it's important, and this gate speaks to this, it all starts with self-caring, self-nurturing. If we overextend and are too focused on everyone else's needs, we're not able to take care of our own needs. And so I think the symbolism here during this very potent time as we close out the cycle is having the beauty of Venus in the archetype of self-care and nourishment, because that's really what we can use this final week. Really, really supportive to have Venus there. So now we'll move into Thursday, May 2nd. Now at this time, the moon is in gate 30, line 6. So she'll be leaving this. All these charts that are not the quarter moons are at noon Mountain Standard Time. So she's wrapping up her movement through gate 30, and it's giving us the channel of recognition, a design of focused energy. Pluto being in gate 41, the moon in gate 30. And I again think this speaks to this yearning. Gate 30 is the gate of desire, emotional desire for something new. And so having this whole channel of this archetype of recognition is recognizing what is the correct next experience of evolution for each of us. And of course, always following our personal authority. I always want to mention that in every one of my reports, that it's so important, particularly from such a dynamic lunar cycle, that we have a deep personal relationship with our human design personal authority. If you're not clear on what that is, please reach out to me. I'd be glad to support you in the process and understanding that. But really important during at all times, but particularly when we're being impacted so deeply through so many activations of individual gates in our body graph. It's been an incredibly stimulating time. But we may be feeling this yearning to move beyond, to get past some of these limiting belief systems that we may have had, and move into a new cycle of experience. Now, also, we can see that Pluto in Aquarius at 2 degrees, it's red now because Pluto turned retrograde just about 10 minutes prior to this noon chart on Thursday. Now, Pluto will be retrograde all the way until October 11th. I'll do another report related to that, but to mention that did take place on Thursday. Mars is moving into a sextile with that Pluto, and we can see Mars at 1 degree. So over the next couple of days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're having Mars and the energy and power of Mars in a free-flowing, communicative sextile with Pluto. So on Thursday, plenty of energy to do that deep dive, maybe do some creative writing, really trying to get to the source of whatever we have perceived as our number one limitation, whatever has held us back. If there's anything where we're just feeling that angst, which may have been stimulated by this potent lunar cycle, to get to the bottom of it. What was the circumstances? Was it childhood? Was it some sort of early development? Wherever it comes from, we have the power right now to find it, to get it, to examine it, and to alchemize that into the gift that I was sharing. We also have Jupiter making a movement into gate 8, also part of our individual circuitry, the gate of individual contribution. And on this particular day, he's in line 1, which is called the line of honesty. And I mention that because so much stimulation is happening during this month of initiation, touching on this deep inner core of our being, that line 1, which always in all of the gates and hexagrams is the foundational line. It is the why. How does this archetype grow? What is the security that we can find in the particular archetype of the gate? And in this gate of individual expression, the gate of contribution, line 1 is honesty. This is a time to be honest, deeply honest with ourselves first, and others, right? Maybe enough of the white lies, the cutting corners, with all this Aries energy, the shadow of Aries is overextending, over getting, and not taking care of our needs. So that's been another theme of the entire lunar cycle. And I think with Mars moving back into his home sign, forming this very powerful sextile to Pluto, that gives us this deep power to go within. A lot of energy for this type of work right now. Very supportive. Could be some more downloads that come through on this Thursday, Friday, Saturday as we're closing out the cycle. And Chiron has also finally moved from gate 51, where he was at the time of the new moon solar eclipse, into gate 42. Well, gate 42, which again, Chiron doesn't get an activation in the body graph, but still a very, again, extremely important archetype at this time. Gate 42 is the gate of growth and evolution. It takes time, patience, and experience to eventually reach maturation. And this is what this archetype speaks to, this growth. And so, again, having been through this cycle of initiation and stimulation, possibly having cathartic experiences, Chiron is now moving into the gate of growth, where we may experience the fruits of our efforts in regards to this self-healing. So, important shift by Chiron there. Now, as we go into Friday, we can see that the sun moves into gate 2, the archetype of receptivity, of higher knowing, putting the earth in gate 1, the most creative, self-creative, expressive gate in the body graph, in the G center, which is also lining up with Jupiter that had just moved into gate 8, bringing us the channel of inspiration, the creative role model. So we're going to have not only the channel of inspiration, and as you can see, we still have the channel of initiation through the rest of this week, of this last phase of this cycle. So again, just that alone, what an incredible story. We've received this opportunity of initiation, of moving into our higher self. And here we have the archetype and energy to find that expression. We still have Uranus in gate 23, offering its power to assimilate our knowing and our individual creative expression. So again, just incredibly potent time right now to move in, to up level, to move to your next level. You have winds at your back right now if you're doing the work and reflection required to self-evolve and self-authenticate into your highest vision of yourself. Now is the time. We can, as I mentioned, that Mars is on Friday exactly 2 degrees sextile to that Pluto. And the moon is in gate 63 conjunct Saturn. Now, At the new moon, we had Mars conjunct Saturn in gate 63. And now, as we're closing out the waning phase of the moon, we have the moon conjunct Saturn in gate 63. I spoke more about this in my previous reports, but let me just remind that, what I was seeing here, when we think about Saturn, whatever gate Saturn is, we know Saturn is often called the taskmaster and the stern teacher. He's here to help us mature. Saturn brings maturity. Not always an easy path, but that's his job. And he brings structure. He provides the scaffolding of our 3D world. And so I think his time in gate 63 and having the Mars conjunction at the new moon and having the moon conjunct Saturn as she's in her final days of this cycle, I think there's a real opportunity here in the gate of doubt, in the channel of logic, to really reframe our perception of what we previously deemed logical. There's a new structuring possible in this gate of doubt for each of us. What we used to feel as limits of logic based on patterns in our life, this ability through all the other aspects that have been happening in this transformative time of initiation to reframe and restructure our perceptions of what's logical and what's possible. So I think the moon making her pass here and exchanging that information as they do when they're conjunct with each other and the melding of their energies, we're getting this emotional ability to restructure and reframe doubts we had in the past, right? These patterns that we now have taken a second look at and re-examined of what's possible within ourselves. So I think there was a strong connection between this gate of doubt and the fear, doubt, and insecurities we've manifested as a result of past experiences. And on this particular day, I think the moon could be doing a very powerful emotional job on reframing what's possible and what our current doubts are compared to what they may have been prior to this lunar cycle. Also, on this day on Friday, we can see the moon at that 13 degrees. She's also forming her final sextile with the sun in Taurus. So she's making her final free-flowing, smooth, communicative aspect. And so there's this supportive emotional energy as we're going to wrap up these final few days here, reframing our doubts and insecurities, tending to our soul's garden, self-nourishing, that we're really having gone through this portal. It's a portal of initiation into our higher self. Their moon is really offering this supportive emotional quality here on Friday. As we move to Saturday, May 4th, the moon at 28 degrees is almost exactly conjunct to Neptune. So this is a noontime chart, so won't be very long after noon that this conjunction will be exact, but we might certainly be feeling it already at this point. And this conjunction is going to take place in gate 25, line 1. So again, we're back into that channel of initiation, gate 25 to gate 51, with the North Node and Chiron still in gate 51, and Neptune and the moon in 25, line 1, and even Mars, even though in home sign of Aries, he's still in gate 25. So when we think about the emotional depth and quality of the moon, our inner world, our emotional world, lining up with Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, mutable water, Neptune being the limitless planet of imaginations and creativity, there is no boundary, right? We have a real day of the dream world here. So I think Saturday, due to this conjunction and all that I've been sharing, again, what a wonderful supportive day to get your creative outlets going, whether it's music, song, dance, writing, anything that helps you touch on your self-love. Gate 25 is a gate of higher self-love. It's called universal love. It's spirit of the self. And here the moon and Neptune are. So, what is our current perception of that? How has that changed and been stimulated over the course of this month? And to dream and dream big, to hold the feeling of your intentions, of your higher self, and what that would feel like to reach your grandest dreams and visions. A beautiful time for these contemplations on Saturday. In that channel of initiation, just so powerful and so beautiful. I wish you all the best in these explorations. As we come to Sunday, May 5th, the moon has moved into Aries. Just a short time after this noontime chart, she'll be conjunct the nodes. And Mercury is moving forward, as I mentioned. And the important thing about this period for Mercury is that, Mercury 3 or 4 times a year goes retrograde, right? So he'll move forward, stop, go backward, retrace territory he's been over, stop again, and go forward. And so he traverses this particular area of the chart here in Aries for the third time, which he's doing right now. And on the third pass through, there's this incredible opportunity through our re-examining what's happening to find missing clues. And how supportive that can be, right? As we're mapping our life out, where did it start? How did we get to where we are? How do we restart, re-envision, and initiate into this higher vision of ourselves? Mercury has a great potential right now for you to find the missing elements that we weren't seeing before. And I mention it right now because Mercury's at the exact degree of where the eclipse happened. It happened in 19 degrees Aries with the Chiron. So again, Mercury went backwards over that and is now moving forward over that for the third time. So as we close in on the final couple days of this lunar cycle, I encourage everyone to, again, through these, using your tools and modalities to access your inner truth and inspiration, you may find some important elements here right now. So wonderful time to be extra mindful, extra aware. It is the waning phase, a closing of the cycle, wonderful time to go inward and reflect. And we're preparing for the next new moon coming on Tuesday. So I think this whole weekend, from the moon conjunct Neptune on the Saturday, and here we have Mercury not only at the same degree of where the new moon eclipse started, it's also right next to that Chiron again, which is at 20 degrees. It's an incredible opportunity here to really go to this next level, to really heal from those experiences more than ever before. Just tremendous support from the transits here. Also, Venus at this point in gate 24. Venus moved into gate 24 here, line 1. So now Venus is offering this ability to return, to rationalize, to get our mind on board. Where have we come from? Where are we going? What are the missing clues that Mercury may be providing us, right? A wonderful time for reflection in these final couple days of the lunar cycle. We can also see that Saturn has moved into gate 22, another individual gate, and it's called the gate of grace. It's the solar plexus, and anytime we have these solar plexus gates activated, again, it does bring an increased emotionality. But we're going to see what happens here now. See, Saturn's going to be here for quite some time, but bringing its structure to a gate, an archetype that is about individual emotional expression in social interaction. So another individual gate activated here. And it's in a half square to the Pluto. Well, a half square has a very similar vibrational quality as a square. It's dynamic, it's hot, it's urging us to resolve something. And I think part of that resolution, the fact that it's in gate 22 and it's in an individual circuitry, which both the channel of inspiration and channel of initiation are, and these other individual gates, here again, it's just another drumbeat of this lunar cycle asking us to go deep within to revitalize this idea and inspiration of our highest vision of ourselves. And then this brings us to Monday, which is the final day of this lunar cycle. The new moon will take place on Tuesday, the 7th in Taurus. The moon on this final day is in the gate of ordering. And the gate of ordering is in the channel of mutation, gate 3 to gate 60. Individual circuitry. It speaks to how a mutation, there has to be a restructuring, a reordering of energy, right? For this mutation. And when I say mutation and I talk about the channel of mutation, I always think of the butterfly emerging from the cocoon. This is the type of mutation possible during this lunar cycle. Something completely new can emerge from within inside ourselves. So, very potent to have the moon in gate 3 as she's closing out her lunar cycle. Mercury has moved into gate 42. Gate 42, as I've mentioned it previously, because we've had other planets passing through here, gate 42 is the gate of growth and evolution. Bringing this ability to evolve with maturity into the next cycle. And I also want to point out, as we look at this final day of the lunar cycle, there are always 13 activations on the right under the heading of personality. Every body graph has 13 personality activations. But on what I'm sharing, I'd like to add Chiron. Chiron doesn't get an activation in our human design body graphs, but because he was the headline news of the whole cycle, I want to add him to this calculation, which is that out of 14, again, 13 that you're looking at on the chart, if we add Chiron, there's 14 activations I'm referring to. On the last day of this cycle, 11 out of 14 activations are in individual circuitry. And we're wrapping up this most incredibly powerful lunar cycle of initiation into the highest inspirational vision and creative expression of ourselves. So on this final day of Monday, I'm just going to take some time to myself to really try to fully integrate what's happened here. Now, this lunar cycle has been so dynamic and so potent. I think it'll be a great deal of time down the road before we can actually look back and see where the other things that may come from this month. But it's absolutely been one for the ages, if you will. So transformationally, mutationally, individually potent. This is a wonderful day to do that alone time, just to really integrate the full power of what we've just been through. And I'll just show you the chart for the next new moon. This is where my lunar cycle report will pick up again next week. But just to give you a snapshot of it, you can see how different this cycle is going to look like. We have so many planets now have moved into Taurus, fixed Earth, ruled by Venus, grounding in the security of our environment and stability and sensuality. And all the planets except Pluto are all moving forward. And again, having Mars in his home sign and Venus in her home sign at the point of the next new moon, I think we're really moving into a different phase where we can hopefully have integrated what we've learned from the last lunar cycle and ground it out and help build the secure foundation of where we're going for the rest of this year. So we'll pick it up there next time. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all the best. Bye for now.